Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa on France 24. I'm Vedika Bahel, and here's the top headlines from across the continent. Expanding its export footprint across the continent, Nigeria's Dangote Refinery says it's stepped up exports across Africa, shipping 12 cargoes of refined petroleum products totaling 456,000 tonnes. This as the war in Iran squeezes traditional fuel supply routes and disrupts energy flows. 76% of births in sub-Saharan Africa occur in healthcare facilities without basic water, sanitation and hygiene. That's according to a new report from NGO WaterAid. It also shines a light on the scale of maternal sepsis in the region, as rates of death are almost 150 times higher than in North America or Western Europe. And archeologists in the Ivory Coast raise concern about coastal heritage sites that they say are under threat due to soil exploitation and urbanisation. We bring you the story from our team on the ground. Thank you for joining us here on Eye on Africa. We'll be starting this bulletin with our top story. The Dangote mega refinery east of the Nigerian city of Lagos says it's began exporting fuel to other African countries after oil prices worldwide surged due to the US-Israel war in Iran. Dangote Refinery announced Sunday it had sold a total of 456,000 tonnes of oil to 5 countries: Cameroon, Togo, Tanzania, Ghana and the Ivory Coast. Historically dependent on imports from the Middle East and Europe, this comes as Nigeria seeks to position Dangote as a strategic alternative for African nations, as Clement Waller explains.
Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Togo, Ghana and Tanzania. These 5 African countries are now turning to the Nigerian Dangote Refinery to meet their oil needs. In total, more than 450,000 tons of hydrocarbons have been delivered to them since the start of the war in the Middle East, a way to limit the economic consequences of the conflict, which has been marked by soaring fuel prices.
By supplying neighbours and other economies, the Dangote Refinery is expected to contribute to enhance energy security in West, East and Central Africa.
Before the refinery opened in 2024, Nigeria had to import nearly all of its fuel and shortages were common. Today, the plant has a production capacity of 650,000 barrels per day and is committed to prioritizing the domestic market. This initiative is part of the government's vision to establish Nigeria as a major player in the oil industry.
The world consumes about 105, 106 million barrels per day. I don't see that changing that much anytime soon. So we need to work together so that we have enough hydrocarbons available.
With the Strait of Hormuz remaining virtually closed, the refinery could also see a surge of European orders, notably for jet fuel.
Staying in Nigeria, EU Foreign Commissioner Kaya Kallas met with the country's foreign minister and regional organisations in Abuja. She highlighted the long-term security partnership between the European Union and Nigeria, commending the country's efforts in combating terrorism against insurgent groups. She also reiterated how the bloc was contributing over the past decade. Let's take a listen.
Over the past decade, we have mobilised more than 700 million euros to support counterterrorism, stabilization, rule of law, and the multinational joint task force. But our cooperation is not only tactical, it's also strategic. Earlier this year, we launched the first EU-Nigeria Peace, Security and Defense Dialogue, and this is how we turn our partnership into action, by defining the priorities and strengthening cooperation.
Around 200 suspected jihadists were released in Mali in recent days, a Malian security source told news agency AFP Monday. Since September, jihadists from Jenin, affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, have caused fuel chaos and shortages by attacking tanker convoys, which at the height of the crisis in October brought the capital Bamako to a standstill. On Sunday, multiple sources reported that the release was in exchange for the opening of a corridor to allow tankers to pass. The agreement will remain in place until the end of May, sources told AFP. Next, a new report from NGO WaterAid has found that 76% of births in sub-Saharan Africa take place in healthcare facilities without basic water, hygiene and sanitation, meaning millions of babies are being born every few seconds in rooms where staff cannot wash their hands or women cannot wash themselves. The report also gives insight into the scale of maternal sepsis. In sub-Saharan Africa alone, 1 in 9 births results in maternal sepsis, and those mothers are 144 times more likely to die than those in North America and Western Europe. Well, for more on this, let's bring in WaterAid's Zambia Country Director, Yanko Mataya, speaking to us from Lusaka in Gambia. Thank you for joining us here on Eye on Africa. I want to start with a more general overview. Can you tell us a little bit about why the statistics and the water sanitation gap in sub-Saharan Africa is so high? What are the main reasons for that?
Yes, thank you very much, Fadila. The situation is indeed dire, and correct that we are seeing very high numbers of maternal sepsis cases as well as associated deaths in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm not sure that in this time it's acceptable for us to be losing as many as 36 mothers every single day because the healthcare facilities that they're getting maternal care from don't have essential basics such as clean water, decent sanitation, as well as good hygiene to practice effective infection prevention and control. The major thing that we have seen as a gap is not really the lack of political will. We did see the adoption of the World Health Assembly resolution on WASH in healthcare facilities, and we've seen that cascaded all the way down into countries. So we're not lacking in terms of will and direction or commitment to change the situation. What really is lacking is the investment towards actually transforming the situation and making a change by making those services available in healthcare settings within Africa.
Now, it might seem like a basic question, but I feel like many people might not have thought about it in so much detail. But can you tell us why is water so essential in birth and delivery?
Yes, a strong health system does require access to safe, clean water to practice good infection prevention and control. The mothers themselves do need clean water during different procedures. So when they come in for their delivery and they stay in the healthcare facility, after delivery, they need to wash up. They need clean water to clean their babies with. But we find ourselves experiencing cases where women can't even have a bath after delivery. They have to wait a day or two until they get home and they're in soiled clothes before they can actually deliver. It's also important from a dignity standpoint. So in communities where we have supported as WaterAid by improving water sanitation and hygiene in healthcare facilities, we actually do see that facility-based deliveries do increase and home-based deliveries reduce. We understand that home-based deliveries pose their own type of risks. In the event of complications, there's no professional to deal with things, or women choose to delay coming into the hospital for deliveries, and we see that significantly improve where WASH is available. And healthcare workers as well, both their morale and their ability to provide quality care does depend on having clean water on hand at all critical points of care, including in delivery rooms. But sadly, you speak with healthcare workers who are forced to conduct unsafe deliveries that don't have access to clean water because it's just not there in the space that they're practicing in. And these are some of the realities that we get to see.
And Yanko, this report draws on the testimonies of women from Malawi and Uganda. Could you give us a brief insight into what some of their experiences are like? Are there any stories that have really stood out to you?
Yes, there are many stories given the scale of the problem that we have. And I can recall particular stories of women that went to have a delivery. There's one particular case study, a woman narrates her experience of going in to deliver and not being able to take a bath after her delivery. So she had to be kept in the facility post-delivery with her soiled clothes, and she then had to wait and only be able to change her clothes and take a bath after she had gone home. And the same for her baby as well. And unfortunately, in some instances, women are not so fortunate. So you find mothers lose their lives or babies lose their lives because of that lapse in terms of having this essential resource that is so critical for care.
And Yanko, I want to turn now to maternal sepsis in sub-Saharan Africa. The statistics are very shocking. There's 36 mothers estimated to be losing their lives every single day, 13,000 annually. What are the solutions and investments in sanitation that could prevent such high numbers?
Yes, what we need is now the translation of the good intentions that we see in terms of national plans and global commitments that have been made towards increasing access to water, sanitation, and hygiene and healthcare facilities. And we know from the study that has been conducted that actually investing in these critical things, particularly the water supply, is in fact more cost effective than having to treat sepsis and also having to manage the loss that comes in case of death happening. And we know that healthcare facilities that do have adequate water, and if this was achieved at a global scale, we can actually reduce the cases of sepsis by as many as 10 million women. It can go down by 50%. And the deaths can also go down by as much as 50%. Over 8,000 lives can be saved by providing these essential services. I don't see that there is a greater price to pay than the loss of human life. And so by averting avoidable deaths, I would think that that would be the ultimate return, in addition to the financial returns that stand to be benefited by ensuring that all healthcare facilities are operating with the key basics of safe water that is reliable, as well as good sanitation and hygiene.
Thank you so much, Yanko, for this important insight and for joining us here on Eye on Africa. I think we're going to have to leave it there. That was Yanko Mataya, WaterAid Zambia Country Director, speaking to us. Moving on now, in the Ivory Coast, archaeologists are sounding the alarm over coastal heritage sites threatened by urbanisation and soil exploitation. These areas have no special protection, despite significant artefacts being uncovered during earlier excavations, which were later halted due to a lack of funding. This report now from our team on the ground.
6 days a week, these men work in this marshland, digging for their livelihood. They extract shell sand, a material used in everything from poultry feed to toothpaste. But beneath the surface lie archaeological treasures that would sometimes emerge from the water.
Ça, j'ai l'impression que c'est un os, peut-être un os de bovin, mais bon.
Sinon, il y a beaucoup de choses en tout. Il y a beaucoup de choses en tout.
Mais les ossements humains, on les trouve toujours.
Non, toujours nous trouvons ça.
The last academic excavations in this area uncovered remains dating back to 1500 BC, but the research stopped when funding ran out.
These objects are in danger because they've been removed from their context. In archaeology, objects only make sense in the context in which they're found. Because of the excessive exploitation of shell sand, we can no longer find them in the stratigraphy. Stratigraphy represents the different periods that have followed one another over time in chronological order.
Sand extraction is not the only threat. Rapid urbanization on the outskirts of Abidjan's Songan area has already destroyed another site. Here, a 3,000-year-old complete human skeleton was discovered in 2023.
This site is important because the shell-rich environment allows for better preservation of archaeological remains, which in other places would be destroyed by the acidity of the soil. Further studies on this land could have helped us understand the different migrations that took place in this area. But unfortunately, this is something we'll probably never be able to witness.
To raise awareness, the university's archaeology department is now displaying some of these artifacts on campus.
We need to show the importance of archaeology, the importance of these different elements, because often we don't know our own origins. We must build museums to show that we matter. It's not only the West.
The Ivory Coast opened its first museum dedicated to archaeology last year. A small but significant step towards protecting this heritage.
Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of Eye on Africa. Do stay with us, though, on France 24. There's more world news coming up.
This week, our reporters take us to the separation wall between Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank. Despite the danger, hundreds of Palestinians cross it every day, using ropes and ladders to go and work illegally in Israel.
Without Israel, there is no work.
Our journalists met these workers and investigated the smuggling networks that profit from this trafficking.
Any worker who tells you he's paying too much is a liar. Do you feel guilty?
No, I don't feel guilty. It's not my fault.
Watch the West Bank up against the wall on France 24.